Hey guys, my name's Alana and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, make sure you click that red subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you'd like to see more mental health videos. And also click the bell notification so that every time I post a video, you will know about it. So for today's video, this is probably going to be a very long video. I'm going to try to keep it like as short as I can. But I might have to make like part 1 and part 2 because it's just going to be like way too long. And I don't want to be like sitting here for like an hour or whatever. So as you've seen by the title, today's video is going to be my mental health story video. Now I've seen like a lot of other people's videos like this, so yeah, I'm probably just going to be like going through like my mental health history and like where I've kind of gotten up till now. I also want to mention that I have a Instagram page specifically for my mental health, so if you'd like to go follow that, it's called Typically Alana. I'll put the name up here on the screen and then you can go follow that, the link's down below. So yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start off saying that I am 20 now, but my mental health issues have basically been around since I was probably around 12. That's when I first started noticing things kind of going a little bit off. I'm not going to be mentioning like everything because there are some things that are private. So my birth and everything was kind of like traumatic, and like the things that happened around me being born was traumatic and really affected like me and my whole family. So there was a situation, but I'm not going to go into that because it is personal. If you know me in person, you probably know what it is, but yeah, just for the protection of like other people, it's yeah. So basically that kind of impacted me as well later on, but so I suppose I'll start with like me as a kid. So this is going to be very interesting. Me as a kid, I was very like strong-willed, extremely stubborn. I was the kid who you told the kid don't touch that button, and I would be there like going to touch the button, like looking at you like, what are you gonna do about it? That was me as a kid, like, you know. So yeah, growing up I was very strong-willed, very stubborn. It was a lot for my mum to handle at times. And I would throw massive tantrums. I have always had a very bad temper, and as a kid, like as a 2-3-year-old, 5-year-old, I would throw like massive tantrums for like, it could be like over an hour, and I'd just be like screaming and crying and like just throwing things, and it'd be really bad. And I just always just had a bad temper, and I think a lot of it was coming from the trauma that I had experienced, but I was a kid, so I didn't know how to like deal with it. So yeah, then moving on from being like a toddler, I suppose, as I got older and I had to go to school, so around age 5, I started experiencing a little bit of bullying, and as the years kind of progressed and I got up to maybe like year 3, so I was about 8 years old, I was just being like bullied and harassed like a lot more, and it was getting really bad. And so my parents tried to like sort it out with the school, but the school was really not helpful, and they were accusing me of lying about it, which is kind of stupid. Like, why would you lie about being bullied? So yeah, basically what happened was I just had to leave the school, so I went to a different school. I'm not going to be naming the schools, obviously, it's going to give away where I live, but also just for like, I'm not going to trash talk schools, okay? But yeah, so the second school that I went to actually wasn't much better. I will say this, the school was attached to the church that I still go to it, but I was going to. So this school wasn't actually much better. It was a lot smaller, but I actually just moved and then I got bullied again. So yeah, it wasn't a very nice time for me. It made me really hate school, and I was already a very anxious child, and I started like developing a lot more anxiety around the fact that I had to go to school. I didn't really have any friends. I found it really difficult to make friends, and I felt like I was being excluded constantly. And just like, yeah, the girls who were bullying me would just say really horrible things to me and like purposely exclude me, and just a bunch of other things. And again, the school did not do much about it. I think this was due to the fact that the people who were bullying me, their family member worked at the school, so obviously they're gonna like side with them over me. Academically, I also struggled. I now know I have learning issues, but back then did not know that I had an issue with that. And so I basically spent a lot of my life growing up thinking I was just really dumb and just like stupid, because I never could understand what was going on in class. And like, honestly, at that time I was so fed up with the bullying, I actually didn't want to do my work and I didn't really care. And I went to a very small school, so we had composite classes, which means that, you know, it's really hard for the teacher to teach properly and be able to help you when you have like multiple grades in one classroom. So that was not great either. So that would be around year 4, year 5, so I probably would have been about 10, I think, 11. So then you jump to year 6. I would be 11 years old, and that year was actually pretty good. I don't really remember anything bad happening then. And then going into year 7, this is where, like I said before, my mental health really started to take on a bit of a decline. Not like anything major, but like I wasn't in high school, so they changed the rules about... Okay, so here in Australia, basically before it was like if you were in year 7, it would still be considered primary school. So from year prep to year 7, that's called primary school, and then from year 8 until 12, it was called secondary school. But a couple years after I went to high school, they changed the rule where year 7 is now considered high school. But this wasn't the case when I was in year 7, so just putting that there. So yeah, like I went into year 7 and I was still at the same school, but I just really started to struggle at this point. I started to get really bad anxiety, like social anxiety, and what I now know is considered like agoraphobia, which I am diagnosed with, but I was actually experiencing a bit of that, but not at a huge degree, because I just wouldn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to go to school really. Like, it wasn't like overtaking my life, but like I just remember feeling really, really anxious about like having to go to school. And like at this point I did have like some nice friends and it was no issue, and I wasn't being bullied, but I don't know why, but I just started to feel like depressed. And I didn't know anything about mental health at the time. I didn't know what mental illness was. I didn't know that you could take medication for mental health. I knew nothing. No one in my family had really mental health issues, so it just wasn't a thing that was ever spoken about in our household, or even at school it was never made aware of. So by the time I got to year 7, I started to just feel quite depressed, and at this time I got really bad acne, and it's kind of like an awkward age for everyone. I feel like nobody's happy at this age. I will also say something I forgot to quickly mention is that when I was the year before this, I used to do dance classes, and I was getting bullied yet again there. The girls were very, very mean and would just like say really horrible stuff to me and stuff. And so this actually was when I started having panic attacks, because I'd be like waiting after class for my mom or dad to come pick me up, and for some reason I'd get like this overwhelming sense of like dread and like fear that they were going to forget to come get me, and that I was going to be left there on my own and like stuck there and have no way of getting home. I didn't have a phone or anything. Like, this would be 2011. So yeah, that is what basically started like kind of the agoraphobia symptoms, is because like a lot of my anxiety is like based around being stuck in places where I feel anxious, not being able to escape it, something bad happening to me, and then like me not be able to, you know, deal with it. So yeah, that was also happening, which wasn't great. And I ended up stopping dance lessons, and I ended up doing horse riding because I loved horses, and my mom finally let me do horse riding. I'd been begging her for years. So yeah, but moving back to what I was saying before about year 7, at the time I was really struggling with my self-esteem, my body image. I absolutely hated myself. Like, just, it was terrible, and like I don't know, like I just compared myself to other people, and I was born 27.5 weeks premature, so I'm a very small person even now, but back then I was so skinny, and I was very self-conscious of that, because when I was in dance class I was made fun a lot of like how small I was, and it just kind of made me feel like, I don't know, like I just compared myself to other people. And so I was struggling with acne. I was feeling really bad about myself. I knew that this next year I'd have to move to high school, and I had to go to a different school for my high school years. So I was like really scared and just like anxious, and I started having panic attacks. I didn't want to go to youth like anymore. Like our church would have youth nights and I would get too anxious and I would chuck basically like a tantrum about it. And at the time, like, I didn't know how to express what I was feeling, and so I didn't know what anxiety was. I didn't know what social anxiety was, and my mom would just be like, why don't you want to go, like, just go and stuff, and I would just like make a big deal out of it, and I wouldn't want to go, and it would just be like kind of confusing to me because I didn't know what I was feeling. I just felt really like I don't want to go. Yeah, and so that was kind of happening at the time, and I was just feeling like very like insecure about myself, and so that was probably like the start of like me experiencing like disordered eating. So I started like binge eating on foods that I thought would like make me put on weight because I felt too skinny. So a lot of people had the opposite issue, but for me, I felt like I was too skinny, I was too small, I didn't like the way I looked, and I was like, you know, if I binge, I don't know where I got the binge eating idea from. I think I just came up with it, I don't know. I didn't know anything about eating disorders either at the time, but so yeah, I started like just binge eating a lot to try to like put on weight. This didn't work. I have a very fast metabolism, and it doesn't really matter like too much how much food I eat. It just doesn't seem to stay on. Which is a good thing, I suppose, but at the time I was very self-conscious of that, and so started like binge eating on and off and trying to make myself like purge. But it wasn't like it wasn't like a thing I did all the time. It was kind of just like every now and then. But this continued to be a problem like for years and years after this, which I will get into soon. So year 7 goes, I was kind of thinking in my head, maybe this is normal, maybe everyone gets depressed. Not that I knew what depression was really, but you know, I was like, oh well, maybe this is just like hormonal, like, because you know, you're going through puberty. I thought maybe everyone experiences this level of sadness and like hopelessness, but looking back, I realized that that really isn't normal, and the amount of like feelings I was having really isn't like normal. So yeah, I think I did try to open up to my parents about it at the time, but I don't really think they took me too seriously. And like I said, like I had a really difficult time opening up to people and like explaining how I felt because I didn't have the right words, and I also found it really hard to trust people. So that was happening. Move on to year 8, and this wasn't a good year either. Basically, I had to go to high school, and high school was not very nice. Again, I felt like I didn't fit in. This is kind of like a recurring theme in my life, if you can't tell. I just felt like I didn't fit in, and I was excluded, and the person who was my best friend at the time, who I'd been friends with for years, completely ditched me for these other girls, and they were not very nice to me, and they would you know, like go out of their way to like exclude me and stuff, and it was very like hurtful, and I was really struggling with that. My acne got really bad, and so I was wearing makeup like every day. Like I wouldn't leave the house without wearing makeup, like foundation, because I felt that embarrassed. I remember one time I went out of the house without makeup, and I was at the shop, and I actually was about to cry because I felt so like ugly and stuff. And so yeah, that was kind of happening. I think the like binge eating thing kind of was going on a little bit, but like I don't think it was like frequently. So yeah, I started feeling really bad about myself, and the bullying kind of went on as well, but because it was very like sneaky kind of bullying, it wasn't really like obvious to a lot of people. At this time, I think I had gotten a little bit of counseling from like this person who was like a pastoral care person, but it wasn't really enough. Like looking back, I needed proper like, you know, psychological help, which I wasn't really getting. So yeah, it was a really difficult year, and then following on to the next year, we go into year 9. This is where the crap just went, like everything just hit the fan. Wasn't a great year either, but you know, year 8 was alright. Like it was hard, but it did have some good moments. But year 9, oh my gosh, this is where it gets really intense. So going into year 9, I was feeling more and more depressed, and I was starting to experience hypomania, which I have bipolar disorder, but at the time I was only diagnosed last year. But when I was 14, so I was in year 9, and I started to experience like periods of depression that were very intense, and then I would have like hypomania. symptoms for like, you know, a week maybe, or, you know, maybe like 4 or 5 days. And I remember feeling like really confused by this, because I was like, I don't know, you know, I don't understand why I'm feeling so depressed, and like I was starting to get like suicidal thoughts, and you know, I was feeling really depressed, and like I hated everything. I didn't want to go to school. I just felt like everything was in a big blur. And I was like, I don't understand how I can feel like so depressed and then go feel so happy. And when I was happy, I'd be like questioning myself, like, was I ever depressed, you know?